across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. The week starts here. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 thrilling hours of news, views, debate, fury and fun. Get involved, get on the phone and call me on 03 44499 1000, or you can send me a WhatsApp voice note on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Monday, December the 15th. Here's what's coming up. While blatant anti-Semitism was on the rise in Australia and, just as they do in Britain, the cops stood around letting pro-Palestine protesters shout sick slogans like "Gas the Jews," Labour Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was warning about the evils of the far right. Even after the sinister Sunday slaughter, this guy was still droning on about the far right, who have been responsible for precisely no terrorism in Australia. Anthony, mate, it wasn't the far right who killed 15 innocents on Bondi Beach. It was 2 Muslim men, one of whom, the son, was known to your clearly useless security executives. On September the 21st, this simpering centrist dad thrilled Hamas's killer rapist thugs by recognising Palestine the same day that Keir Starmer did. 12 days later, the murderous Manchester synagogue attack happened in the UK. Now Bondi Beach. What virtue-signalling socialists like Albanese and Starmer should try to understand is if you reward terrorism, the result will be more terrorism. As he spews weasel words about embracing and protecting Australia's Jewish community, how does Albanese think he made Jews feel when, completely unnecessarily, he recognised Palestine and made Hamas's day? 0344499 1000. Meanwhile, as the world hails the Muslim Syrian-born hero who tackled the older maniac of the father and son shooters, Albanese announces that Australia needs stricter gun control laws. Even though this is the country with the tightest gun control laws in the Western world, a nonsensical response down there with Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper deciding that the way to react after the Southport dance hall slaughter was to stop Amazon flogging knives. As if that will ever make a blind bit of difference. Hopeless. 0344499 1000. In other news, 4 days ago on Friday, Kent Labour MP Tristram Osborne looked back on 4 weeks of 0 small boats and no dinghies and triumphantly announced, "Our hard work is paying off on stopping the small boats." The following day, Saturday, 737 migrants sailed across from France illegally, thanks to Labour's total lack of deterrence and vast array of enticements. The only thing that stops the boats is bad weather. End of. What a shambles. Discuss. 0344499 1000. And all the while, thousands of migrants wait in the Calais jungle for good weather and their chance to make their unlawful voyage to the promised land. Is a single one of Labour's migrant crisis policies even remotely working? Not yet, conceded Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood in another of her unimpressive TV appearances. Not yet, not ever, Shabs. 0344499 1000. Also tonight, as Britain's borders remain open to all comers, the shocking tally of serious crimes, including violent offences, robbery, rape and murder, committed by foreign nationals, is revealed, adding up to an alarming 208,072 over the past 5 years. 208,000. Although the real number, it gets worse, folks, is undoubtedly hugely higher. Reform UK got the statistics by putting in freedom of information requests to all 43 police forces in England and Wales. Only 11 replied, 32 didn't. So that's 208,000 serious crimes disclosed by just a quarter of the UK's constabularies. Think about it. 0344 499 1000. What's the total figure? That is frightening. Plus, Australians react to their nation's tragedy with dismay after leader Anthony Albanese's abject failure to cease the rise of anti-Semitism, and also the curse of The Exorcist, as Scarlett Johansson signs up to the latest version of the classic horror movie that seems to spell bad things for so many people who have been connected to chronicling the story of chilling devil possession is the superstar actress dicing with supernatural danger. And finally, our royal guru, Kinsey Schofield, on Meghan choosing her estranged father's life or death hospital ordeal to let it be known that a reconciliation is now impossible and she will never speak to him again. Ooh, happy Christmas. A heartwarming tale for the festive season. 0344 499 1000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together, and let's go straight over to my first guest for the first 60 sizzling minutes of tonight's show. She is Talk's excellent international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Good evening.
Let's talk about Bondi Beach. Before we talk, shall we listen to a Jewish eyewitness to this atrocity that unfolded on Sunday evening on the beach at Bondi, as Jewish people celebrated Hanukkah. Let's have a listen.
Can you tell me what happened?
Yes, there was two shooters, one on the bridge, one under the bridge. Just start to shoot for 20 minutes. They shoot, change magazine and just shoot. Simple as that. 20 minutes with 4 policemen there. Nobody give fire back. Nothing. Like they are froze. Like for it looked like 20 minutes. Like, and they shoot. The guy change magazine. I look at him all the time. I was with 2 of my babies under me, and I look at that, and it's just rifle and a pistol, and just shoot. And the other one was under. They start to come close to the audience. One of the.
Okay, now one of the stories, I'm reading through the victims today, so many of the victims, or a significant number, children, of course, women, but also husbands and fathers who threw themselves across their wives to try to protect them and then were shot to death in so doing. This was an attack on Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah, which is the festival of light for them. How a single container of oil kept light going for 12 days, unlikely but true, and all that. So it's a very it's a celebration of the beauty of light over darkness, and this happened. Now, Anthony Albanese, their Labour Prime Minister, while he has presided over the rise of anti-Semitism in Australia, they have pro-Palestine marches. Not so long ago, there was one outside the Sydney Opera House where the crowd were chanting, "Gas the Jews, gas the Jews." And just as they do in this country, the cops just stand and watch and tolerate this. Don't do anything about it. So he has been, while this has been going on, he's been talking about the worrying rise of the far right. The far right have been responsible for no terrorism whatsoever in Australia. Even after yesterday's horror, he's still talking about the far right. Can I just remind him and anybody else who has forgotten that this was an attack by 2 Muslim maniacs, a father and son, on Jewish people. Another thing that disarmed me, Isabel, was this. So many reports, newspapers, television, radio, right up until almost now, talking about an attack on Bondi Beach, killing 15. Some of the victims were Jewish. It wasn't an attack on Bondi Beach. It was an attack on Jewish people by Muslims. It's as simple as that. Still, people seem to be terrified to categorise it for what it is. Before I get your response, this is Anthony Albanese talking about the far right being the problem.
Just briefly, to be clear, your priority from National Cabinet in relation to the gun laws, what is the #1 priority for you?
I would put them all together, making sure that they operate effectively and that they're kept up to date and that they're updated for the changing threat. We live in a more dangerous world in 2025. The threat of anti-Semitism, as we have seen, is very real. Threats of other occurrences, such as the rise in the far right, which has also been identified, of course, by Mike Burgess, is also a threat.
So there you go, Isabel. He's obsessed with the far right. He's been talking about the far right for, throughout this rise of anti-Semitism. And I'm told by my Australian friends that their problem with anti-Semitism is similar to that in Britain, only worse. And Albanese has presided over a system which tolerates these pro-Palestine marches. I have no problem with pro-Palestine marches. I do have a problem with them when they start chanting things like "Gas the Jews," as they did outside Sydney Opera House. Albanese, his government, his police force did nothing about that sort of thing. There are other examples. Today he's talking about, we must embrace our Jewish community. This awful anti-Semitism, we must protect them. He's done nothing to protect them. On September the 21st, along with Keir Starmer, he recognised Palestine for no particular reason except to polish his halo and signal his virtue as a left-wing politician. And 12 days after that, we had the Manchester synagogue attack. Now Australia has got this attack, and the message there is, if you reward terrorism like the October the 7th atrocity, then you will cause more terrorism, right?
I mean, it's also depressingly familiar, isn't it? Something absolutely horrific and outrageous happens, and the truths about the type of people that committed that awful abomination is uncomfortable, and so a political leader, a prime minister or a president, starts talking about the far right as if that's got anything to do with it whatsoever. I'm sure that most of our listeners will be remembering Keir Starmer's response at this time to the Southport murders. Nothing to do with the far right, but this is the reflex of left-wing leaders. And their second reflex is to start talking about kind of patch and mend solutions like, well, we need to change the gun laws a bit, or we need to stop knives being sold on Amazon. When in fact the much bigger issue is the ideology that is behind these attacks. I personally think it's a great idea to have as few guns as possible in a country. There's a reason that mercifully the UK doesn't have mass shooting events as they have in America. Virtually every day there is something like that in the US. But it doesn't tackle the root cause of these horrendous terror attacks on the Jewish community, which is the anti-Semitic ideology that is allowed to flourish. And, Australia can crack down on guns as much as it likes. There'll still be other weapons with which to carry out these sorts of absolutely reprehensible murders.
Yeah, and that's exactly the comparison I made, that after the Southport killings, that awful slaughter in the dance hall there, Keir Starmer first of all started blaming the far right when it had nothing to do with the far right, and secondly him and Calamity Cooper, the then Home Secretary, announced that their way of tackling this horror and trying to prevent it ever happening again was to slap a ban on Amazon selling knives. Which is like putting a bar of chocolate in front of a fire and expecting it not to melt. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And Anthony Albanese saying I'm going to crack down on gun control. Well, look, Australia, by common consent, has the tightest, the strictest gun control laws in the Western world. Well, ours are pretty strict, but much stricter than ours. So he's got the strictest gun controls known to the Western world. And his response to what happened yesterday in Bondi Beach is say, let's have even stricter gun control laws. The father was a fully licensed firearm holder. He was fully licensed and a totally legal possessor of firearms. So Albanese's response is just as pathetic as trying to stop Amazon selling knives after Southport. These people, it's just they want something to say sound as if they're doing something about it. What he should have done something about a long time ago was stop the inexorable rise of anti-Semitism in his country.
Yes, and if it's impossible to get your hands on guns, if you are filled with this hatred, if you believe that some twisted version of the Quran compels you to slay infidels, then you'll find other weapons. It could be crossbows, it could be knives. There are always, I'm afraid, other horrible ways of taking innocent lives. And so really the question that ought to be being asked by Albanese is, how have we allowed this to prosper, to flourish, to mushroom in our society? And it's happening in the UK as well, and in so many other countries, this sick version of Islam that we are far, far too tolerant about in the UK, when so many other countries, so many Middle Eastern countries say we're not having any of that here, and yet we allow it in our own country. And, I think so much of what's going on goes unknown. I think there's terrible things probably being said in the darkest recesses of bad mosques in the UK that we don't know anything about because it's not in our language. The vast majority of Muslims in the UK are peaceful and part of valuable parts of our society and want nothing to do with any of this. But the amount of extreme stuff on social media that's in Arabic and that passes through the filters, because the filters are set up to deal with the English language, not to deal with Arabic, is truly worrying. So we are missing a lot because of that language barrier.
Yeah, 15 dead, I believe 29 seriously injured. This is a guy called Arsen Orsovsky. He is a Israeli Jewish lawyer who gave interviews yesterday very strikingly with his face covered in blood. Let's listen to his reaction to the attack.
I survived October 7th. I lived in Israel the last 13 years. We came here only 2 weeks ago to work with the Jewish community, to fight anti-Semitism, to fight this bloodthirsty, ravaging hatred.
That's why you're here.
That's why I'm here. We've lived through worse. We're going to get through this, and we're going to get the bastards that did this.
Tell me, did you see the gunman?
I did. I saw at least one gunman firing. Looked like a shotgun firing randomly in all directions. I saw children falling to the floor. So elderly. I saw invalids. I saw people just. It was an absolute bloodbath, blood gushing everywhere. October 7th. That's the last time I saw this.
As an aside, Isabel, I put that. I thought it was very striking what he said, and so I put that picture onto Twitter, or X as it's now called, just saying, this guy's face is the story of this. This is what happens when you reward terrorism. Anyway, Twitter, a warning went up saying, "Oh, watch out for graphic content," because he had blood on his face. Okay, I say fair enough. Put it up on Facebook as well. And it was banned from sharing. No one was allowed to share it because weird, because that it? Well, they sort of. I think the reason was of graphic content, shocking blood. We should be allowed to share things like this rather than just doing a knee-jerk. Oh, there's blood on his face. Don't share it. They should look at the content. People should know about this stuff. They really should. I just mentioned that in passing. Let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk about another aspect of it. This hero, this extraordinary Syrian-born hero, Muslim guy, ran a fruit shop, who his act of bravery is astonishing. People know what it is now. He just went and grabbed this guy with the gun and wrestled him to the ground. We'll talk about him next, because we'll play President Trump's tribute. He made a statement, but it was mainly about this hero, and I think he deserves all the plaudits we can give him. So we'll talk about that next. Stay tuned, folks.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, let's have a listen and a watch to President Trump as he reacts to the Bondi horror.
In Australia, you probably read it's been a very, very brave person, actually, who went and attacked frontally one of the shooters and saved a lot of lives. So, very brave person who's right now in the hospital, pretty seriously wounded. So, great respect to that man that did that.
Well, the thing is, Isabel, we're talking about Ahmed Al-Ahmed, a Syrian-born Australian citizen who runs a fruit shop near where the atrocity happened. And we've all seen the video of him sort of crouching behind a car as the guy's firing and then grabbing him. He got quite badly injured himself, hit by bullets as well. Now, this guy was Ahmed Al-Ahmed. He's a Muslim from Syria. And I think here lies the hope. a lot of left-wingers saying, yo, the right-wingers, they can't stand it that the hero was a Muslim. Absolute nonsense. I think there's something fantastic. If there's anything decent and positive to be taken from this horror, it is the fact that the hero of the day was a Muslim. You know, in that we must find hope, surely. Yes?
I mean, 100%. You know, the left, they just can't resist trying to twist everything, can they? Like you, I'm unbelievably happy that anyone could be that heroic, that brave, and even happier that it is a Muslim, because the whole point that all of us keep trying to make is that all Muslims aren't bad in the eyes of the right. Of course they're not. There is a radical interpretation, a warped interpretation of Islam that is responsible for an awful lot of evil, as are many radical interpretations of things. And that is what it's not a right or left thing. You know, all of us who want peaceful society should be very, very worried about. And it doesn't mean that we all lump together all Muslims as if they're all one thing. Of course we don't. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, I'm just astonished that anyone could be that brave, you know, because you would, if you were kind of calculating whether to have a go in that situation, you would just imagine that the terrible peril would be that he heard you coming and just swung round and turned the gun on you.
It's amazing what he did. It's amazing. We're just watching it now.
Amazing.
And the last thing he said to his family, I mean, this is just incredible. He turned to his family and said, I've got to go, I've got to do this. If I die, tell people I was trying to save lives.
Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it? Amazing. And you know, it's coincidental that it was a Muslim, that it was a guy from Syria, but it's a fantastic coincidence because it proves what I always say. You know, you're so right to say what you did, Isabel. It's this. The vast majority of Muslims are like the rest of us. They're just trying to get by, put a roof over their heads, feed the kids, like everyone else. But then you have these nutters, these extremists, like these two shooters, who actually spoiled the image for the rest of them. But the fact that this hero was a Muslim and a Syrian is purely coincidental, but it is the one heartwarming story that we can take from this day of horror in Australia.
That's absolutely right. And I'm sure that there'll be more. There's so much more coming out now as we're learning about the backgrounds of the shooters, the extent to which they were known to Australia's intelligence services, how much were they on the radar, why were they allowed to have access to those weapons, and you know what on earth can be learnt from this. And there's been this evening a vigil near Westminster, and you know, people in the UK wanting to do something, you know, to express solidarity with the Jewish community, but this fear continues to stalk the Jewish community all over the world. Jews all over the world live in fear at the moment, and where can they go that's safe? You know, it must be so terrifying to have that shadow stalking you all the time, having to look over your shoulder, wondering if it might be you next.
Yeah, a rabbi, there was a British-born rabbi that was killed there, who went to Australia, you know, for a sort of happy and sunshine life after living in Britain. So, you know, Australia was sort of seen as a place somewhat divorced or distant from the rest of the world. Well, no, I wasn't aware that their anti-Semitism problem was even worse than ours. But these leaders, these socialist leaders, these naive leaders of our countries, Starmer, Macron for that matter, and of course Albanese in Australia, when they recognised Palestine, I don't think they really understood what they were doing. They were clearly, palpably rewarding Hamas for October the 7th, and they've unleashed something. They've emboldened Muslim extremists and Islamic terrorists all over the world. Hence we have Manchester, the synagogue attack, 12 days after Starmer recognised Palestine. Albanese did it on the same day, and now we've got Bondi Beach. There is, I don't care what anyone says, there's a direct correlation there.
Well, I always thought that it was a completely unnecessary and provocative and likely harmful thing to do. Keir Starmer didn't need to do it. He'd been under a lot of pressure from his own hard left, some of whom anti-Semitic elements within the Labour Party put him under a lot of pressure on that. He didn't need to go down that route nonetheless, but he has not shown much leadership on this issue at all. Those hate marches go on and on and on, and here we are, you know, and probably another atrocity is, I'm afraid, round the corner.
And for the avoidance of doubt, the Australian Labour Party has the same deep-seated anti-Semitism problems as the British Labour Party, which still has bad problems in that direction. The dark days of Corbyn, the worst days of Corbyn may be over, but the problem is far from over. So Australia have got that going on, probably worse than here. We've got it going on. We have these leaders who just appease Islam or Islamic extremists all the time, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop because people are getting killed because of it. It's unbelievable. When we come back, Isabel, we'll revert to more domestic affairs, or rather slightly foreign. We're going to talk about the migrants that came across the channel on Saturday. Quite a few of them. That next. Stay tuned, folks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Yeah, Isabel, on Friday, one of the Kent MPs, a guy called Tristram Osborne, very socialist, Labour-y name. A lot of flat-cap northerners are called Tristram, aren't they? I don't know anything about Tristram Osborne, but I bet he went to Oxford and Cambridge, preceded by some public school. I may be wrong. Anyway, our friend Tristram declared last Friday, after 4 weeks of atrocious weather. So we'd had 28 straight days of no small boat crossings, and this was the longest such period in history, actually. We've never had 28 days before. So with a sickening inevitability, Tristram, Labour socialist Tristram, he said, "Our hard work is paying off on stopping the small boats." That was Friday. Saturday, finally the weather lifted and it was a calm day, a mill pond on the channel, and no fewer than 737 migrants crossed the channel illegally in small boats. So the message is, folks, don't listen to these Labour losers when they tell you, oh, our strategy is beginning to, we've smashed the gangs, the one in, one out, oh, we're certainly offering a lot of deterrence and it's beginning to take effect. No, no, no. Because there are no deterrents and because there are only a vast array of enticements to migrants to come across the channel, the only thing stopping the boats at the moment is bad weather. As soon as it's not bad weather, they come across. We did your brilliant film last week, The Undercover Migrant, lifting the lid on what goes on in the Calais jungle, where all the migrants wait. They gather, they camp, they wait, they live there, waiting for their turn to go across the channel. And it was estimated in that film there are 4,000 of them. Well, on Saturday, 737 of them got onto small boats and arrived in Britain. The Home Secretary went on to Sky News, Shabana Mahmood, yesterday, and was asked, are your solution plans to the migrant crisis working? She said, not yet. Not yet. Shabs, not ever. It's a joke, isn't it?
It would be a joke if it wasn't so damn serious. I cannot begin to describe how serious this situation is. You know, having done the research that we did for the undercover migrant, we should be very worried about the type of people coming into the UK and, critically, who is shepherding them into our country and why. And the idea that there weren't any crossings for 28 days because Labour policies are working is so laughable and so crashingly ignorant as to be worthy of a resignation. How can anybody be that stupid and that ignorant not to understand the scale of demand for these crossings? The only thing that's stopping more people coming over is the shortage, if you like, of dinghies to actually cater for the crowds. You know, one thing that struck us on this undercover operation very, very powerfully was the extent to which there is far more demand for crossings than the people smugglers are currently able to supply. And that should worry us hugely. What does it mean? It means that the people traffickers will continue to upscale their model. The boats will go on getting bigger, there will be more of them, and all that's happening when there is a period of bad weather, because, by the way, even evil people smugglers realise that killing your customers isn't great for business. All that happens when there's a period of bad weather is that the demand for the crossings just gets more and more of a bottleneck. So there will be ever greater crowds rushing for these boats. Kev, before we go on, I just want to bring you a little bit of breaking news.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Labour minister has been booed by crowds in Parliament Square. I've got a brilliant clip of that I can send.
Yeah, send it to us. We'll play it, definitely.
And you'll be able to show that later. I haven't listened to the whole clip, but my goodness, this minister got properly humiliated at that vigil this evening. OK, well,
we'll have a listen to that. Now, to go back to Shabana Mahmood. So she goes on to Sky yesterday. Shabana Mahmood labours under the delusion that she's damn good on telly. I mean, she's all right. The trouble is, she's talking claptrap all the time. So she was she was being probed about Labour's, shall we say, unsatisfactory response to the migrant crisis, insofar as we're probably going to end up with about 60,000 migrants having come across the channel by the end of the year. The tally since Starmer took over the reins of the country is much higher. They're coming and they're coming and they're coming. We don't have any deterrents. The one in, one out scheme is a joke. Whatever happened to smash the gangs? They forgot all about that because that didn't work on account of they never smashed a single people smuggling gang, and so on and so forth. Shabana Mahmood was asked on Sky News yesterday, have you begun to solve the migrant crisis? She said, not yet. Yeah, it's like Shabs, or you, Mr. Starmer, Sir Keir, you've been in power now for, what is it, getting on for 19 months. You know, it's time that some of your policies had effect. You can't sit there 19 months after you were voted in with all these plans. We're going to smash the gangs. We're going to set up the Border Security Command. By the way, the Border Security Command has chewed through, devoured something like more than £200 million worth of taxpayers' money for drones, for state-of-the-art surveillance equipment. They've achieved nothing. They haven't smashed any gangs. The one-in, one-out deterrent is now responsible for sending back something like 150 migrants since August, the beginning of August, but of course they've just been swapped with French migrants coming back here. So that scheme is a joke. You know, while 150 have been sent back to France, something like now 15,000 have come across the channel the other way illegally. Everything Labour is doing, I said it was a joke, you're right, it's not a joke, it's a sick joke. It is pathetically ineffective. Shabana Mahmood doesn't have a clue what to do. Starmer doesn't have a clue what to do. We all know what they've got to do. Leave their beloved European Convention on Human Rights and start making our own sovereign decisions, like detain and deport. You come here on an illegal small boat or an illegal dinghy, that's against the law. You can't stay. You can't apply for asylum. That's what we need to do. These Labour politicians haven't got it in their DNA to do that. They're going to stick with these stupid human rights laws that will prevent this country from making its own sovereign decisions, and our decisions on the migrant crisis will continue to be made by a foreign court in Strasbourg. It's hopeless, isn't it?
They could stop this tomorrow if they wanted, and here's one way that they could stop it without having to change the human rights laws, and that is to go all out to identify in each boat that crosses who is actually in command of that vessel, who is actually driving that boat, if you like, because then you could absolutely arrest that person for people smuggling. That's what they're doing if they're in charge of the boat. And once word gets around that if you're in charge of the vessel, you are going to prison forthwith, then the people smugglers will soon find that there's nobody prepared to actually drive the boats across the channel. And this, I mean, this is not difficult. It really isn't that complicated to identify with all the modern technology that we've got. Who is it in charge on any given vessel? Why don't they do that? You know, there are.
I think the problem with that is it tends to be it's just one of the migrants that they teach how to use the steering.
I know that.
You know, so you're right. But
this is one of the other services that you can provide in exchange for a free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can be the driver. Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's one of the migrants or not. Whoever it is automatically has committed more than one offence by being in charge of that vessel. You're soon going to find that the number of volunteers is going to dry up if they know that puts them straight behind bars.
I agree with that, but on a wider scale, if we could just send all of the passengers, all of the migrants, the message, you're coming to Britain illegally, that means 100% you will not be allowed to stay. 100%. You break our laws when you get to our shores, you do not get to stay. We will deport you. If that message gets through, they'll stop as well. But we're not doing that. What our message to them is, you come across the channel illegally, you just watch out, because we'll put you in a 4-star hotel, we're giving 50 quid a week, free food, free doctors, free dentists and free lawyers and free all sorts of other stuff. That's our message to them at the moment. And Shabana Mahmood wonders why none of their policies have worked yet. We know why they're not working, Shabana. You've got to leave the ECHR, and until you do, as I always say though, Isabel, leaving the ECHR is not the cure-all. It is just the necessary starting block. If we don't leave the ECHR, you've got no chance whatsoever. We have a Labour government, a human rights lawyer Prime Minister, absolutely committed to staying in the ECHR, and that is our disaster. When we come back, we're going to talk, Isabel, about some shocking statistics on the number of crimes being committed in Britain by foreign nationals. It's really frightening. That next, everyone. Stay tuned.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, still with Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott. This is shocking, Isabel. The Sun has obtained statistics actually from Reform UK. Reform UK have established that at least 208,072 serious criminal offences were committed by foreign nationals over the past 5 years. We're talking about offences like rape, robbery and murder. Serious offences, 208,072 over just 5 years. I was thinking, wow, that is seriously worrying. And then I realised it's only the tip of the iceberg. Turns out that Reform UK set out to get this information, so they wrote to all 43 police forces in England and Wales. Only 11 responded. 32 didn't. So those 208,000 serious offences, robbery, rape, murder and other serious offences, were statistics delivered by 11 forces. 32 forces did not respond. Think about that. 208,000 offences by foreign nationals in a quarter of British constabularies. 3/4 of them we don't know, but we can assume similar percentages will emerge. So if you think about this, the number could be terrifying. We could be talking about 800, 900,000, maybe even 1 million. Vast numbers of very serious offences being committed over 5 years by foreign nationals. Another terrifying result of our open borders migrant madness.
So, Kev, this is very interesting. So amongst the police forces that did respond, was the Met one of them? I'm asking whether the London police, Metropolitan Police, were they among those that replied?
See, you ask me all these difficult questions. I don't know. I don't think they've listed the actual forces that responded, but go on anyway.
Okay, so the reason I ask that is obviously because the Met is one of the biggest police forces, and if they're not included, that would again point to the total figure. If you think about all the forces that didn't respond, if they include the Met as well that didn't respond, we might be looking at as many as 1 million serious crimes committed by foreign nationals. Now, what many of us would like to know and can't be told is what is the immigration status of all those people, those foreign nationals that committed those crimes. And I'm afraid that the police have not routinely been collecting that information. So we don't know what proportion of foreign nationals who did these things were, you know, in the UK on holiday, or were they asylum seekers, or, you know, what exactly was their immigration status? Because some of them will be, you know, permanently in Britain. You know, they have the right to remain in the UK, but we can't know any of this, and it's very important information until the police start sharing that kind of data. And there has been a lot of political pressure to change the system to require the collection of crime data by immigration status. I think that is beginning to happen, but it can't come soon enough.
Yeah, well, I've got that information that you brought up there, Isabel. Reform said that the 32 forces that did not respond or did not provide them with an answer said that they could not collate data cost effectively. I'm not sure that is the idea of the Freedom of Information Act. I don't think that police forces are entitled to turn around and say the information that you requested we're not going to give you because it would cost us too much money to get it. I'm not sure that is the principle or the spirit of that law. But you asked about London's Met, the biggest police force in the land, the London Metropolitan Police. That they did not respond, or they did not help Reform UK, but they listed thousands of crimes as down to unknown nationalities. So what Reform and Zia Youssef are getting at here is there is a continued strategic effort by the authorities to keep this kind of information under wraps. We know about this, they've done this before. So it looks as if maybe 3/4 of the police forces in this country, in England and Wales, do not want to tell us how many crimes were committed by foreign nationals because they don't like what the answer would be.
Well, the Freedom of Information legislation, unfortunately, does give public bodies a very easy opt-out, and it is this expense.
Costs too much, yeah.
And it's got a pretty low threshold. It's about £600, I think, is the maximum that it can. That's the amount over which an authority can say, well, actually, this is just all too difficult and too expensive, which is a very, very convenient get out. I think the law was well intentioned because obviously you can't have vexatious inquiries running up vast sums of money. But frankly, with AI these days, you know, running all sorts of proper data systems, it ought to be possible to collate those figures pretty easily. I mean, we are in nearly 2026, and this sort of data ought to be possible to get with a few clicks of a few buttons on a few computers, wouldn't you have thought?
Exactly. It's a definite deliberate reluctance on the part of these police forces to provide information that they just don't like providing. I mean, they've been dragged kicking and screaming into revealing whether or not suspects on sex crimes in particular, but serious crimes, are asylum seekers or migrants. They do tend to do that now, but they didn't do it with great enthusiasm. They've done it due to public fury. They still don't like this. They still don't like admitting how many foreign nationals might be breaking our laws. Now, as you were just saying, if you extrapolate from the 208,000 serious criminal offences committed by foreign nationals over 5 years, given that only a quarter of the police forces delivered the requested information, we're talking, and given that one of them is the Met, by far and away the biggest, most massive crime problem police force in the country, we're probably talking about, as you said, over 1 million offences by foreign nationals, serious offences by foreign nationals in 5 years. That's terrifying.
Well, here's what happens in sensibly run countries. If you are a foreign national and you are visiting that country and you commit a serious offence, then you're out of there. I mean, it's not an option that you just get to carry on floating around, having committed your terrible offence, and you're allowed to stay and potentially carry out more offences. No, that's it. You're either imprisoned and deported, or simply deported before they bother wasting public money locking you up. And we've got to get so much tougher about this. You know, the threshold for theoretical deportation of foreign nationals, I think, is a year of jail time, which is far too much anyway. You know, it should be basically once you've been convicted of a serious crime, you're out. Never mind whether it's a year that you've been sentenced or not, because we know how much pressure judges are now under not to incarcerate anybody. And so what's happening then in any case is that even with those foreign nationals that are incarcerated for a year and so theoretically should be deported, there's all sorts of the usual legal shilly-shallying and ridiculous appeals and pleas for mercy because, you know, they've set up a family life here, etc., etc. We've just got to get absolutely ruthless about this, I'm afraid. You know, the future of our country is at stake. The safety of our own citizens is at stake. We have to change the way this is approached.
Totally agree. And Zia Youssef says that the Met Police have recorded almost 80 to 90% of their crimes as the perpetrators, the suspects, as you know, nationality unknown. That's disgraceful. 80 to 90%. They don't put down the nationality.
What do they mean? Unknown.
Yeah.
How can it be unknown? I mean,
they don't want us to know. They don't want to know. Zia Youssef goes on to say, as we suggested earlier, Isabel, that the 200,000 plus crimes committed by foreign nationals that Reform uncovered are clearly just the very tip of the iceberg. And if that doesn't make everyone extremely frightened and worried, I don't know what will. Isabel, fantastic to talk to you. Thank you so much for your help. Good always to have you on the show. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk to some Australians and get the Jewish reaction to what happened on Bondi Beach. So all of that next. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. So for the next half an hour or so, we're going to go back to Bondi Beach, as it were, to talk about yesterday's atrocity. I've got a couple of in-house Australians who I thought it might be interesting to talk to. What do they feel about the heartbreak their country is suffering and the lead up to it? I mean, was the government, was Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister, vigilant enough in stopping the rise of anti-Semitism? I'm told it's even worse in Australia than it is here in Britain. You know, he's making all the right noises today. Oh, we must embrace our Jewish friends, protect them. Well, how does Anthony Albanese feel about how he made Jewish people feel on September the 21st when he recognised Palestine for no particular reason except to polish his socialist halo? How does he think that made the Jewish community of Australia feel? We here in Britain recognised Palestine on the very same day, 12 days after Keir Starmer, in his infinite wisdom, recognised Palestine. There was the Manchester synagogue killings here in Britain. And now, a couple of months after Albanese recognised Palestine on the same day, September the 21st, you've got Bondi Beach. If you reward terrorism, you will get more terrorism. It's not rocket science. Let's talk to the Director of Investigations and Enforcement at the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism here in Britain, Stephen Silverman. Welcome, Stephen.
Evening.
Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has not been backwards in coming forwards with his view. He has blamed the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and indeed his government of pouring, and I quote, fuel on the anti-Semitic fire before the mass shooting that left at least 15 dead. An attack by Muslim men, 2 Muslim men with rifles, on Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah. Let's not go down the BBC route of saying, oh, it was a shooting at Bondi Beach that involved some Jewish people. It was a direct attack by Muslims, 2 Muslim lunatics, on Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah. Let's get that right. But before this, Netanyahu pointing this out, other critics pointing this out, Albanese long track record of tolerating anti-Semitism. Not so long ago, when they have their pro-Palestine protests in Australia, they're similar to here. Recently, there was one outside the Sydney Opera House where the police just stood and watched while the crowd chanted, "Gas the Jews, gas the Jews." Does that ring any bells to what happens here? Yes, it does, doesn't it? So there are uncanny parallels to what's been happening in Australia to what's happening here in Britain. Albanese making all the right noises today, but he's basically stood by as anti-Semitism increased on an alarming level in his country, and you might argue that now those poor Jewish people on Bondi Beach are paying the cost.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not even certain that it's even worth differentiating between countries at this moment in time. The entire Western world, the entire democratic world, is in the grip of an outbreak of anti-Semitism, the like of which we haven't seen since the Second World War. And it's called, very frequently, it's called a virus for very good reasons, because once it takes hold, it courses through society, and it is very difficult to find a vaccination for it. And that is the situation we find ourselves in today. It is absolutely rampant. What happened in Australia could have so easily happened anywhere else in the world. And although it seems to have happened here a few months ago on a smaller scale, it could have actually been a far greater mass shooting, because there are 2 people currently in detention it is alleged that they had firearms and ammunition and were just waiting for the delivery of hundreds more rounds of firearms before they launched a mass attack on the Jewish community. So, it's this is where we are today. The Western democratic liberal values that we all depend on are under a massive assault. And Jews are simply first in the firing line. But they are only the first. This is a threat to our entire civilization.
Let's talk about, it was September the 21st, when both Australia, Albanese, and Britain, Starmer, recognised Palestine on the same day. It was only 12 days later that we had the Manchester synagogue attack, October the 2nd, I think it was. And now we've got Bondi, a couple of months later, admittedly, but we've got Bondi Beach. Netanyahu saying, you let the disease spread and the result is the horrific attack on Jews that we saw today. Though recognising Palestine, when it happened, I was shocked. I was shocked when Macron did it. I was shocked when we did it. Because it was a blatant, palpable reward to Hamas for October the 7th. You invade Israel, you massacre more than 1,200 people, including women and babies. You rape women, you put babies in the oven, and what is it, a couple of years later, we reward you by recognising Palestine. And that recognition, Stephen, seems to me to have emboldened these maniacs, the maniac who attacked the Manchester synagogue and the maniacs who attacked the poor Jews on Bondi Beach. There's a direct correlation, I think, between the official recognition of Palestine and what's going on now among these terrorists.
Well, the recognition of Palestine was a purely performative gesture that did absolutely nothing to help the Palestinians. And let's remember that it was done while Jewish hostages were still being held in tunnels in Gaza and tortured and murdered, with absolutely no requirement for them to do anything to stop that. But I think it was just part of an overall package of incidents and things that have been allowed to happen. And it was the icing on the cake. On its own, I don't think it did it, but as part of the overall scenario in which we've seen double standards in policing, where anti-Semitic hate marches are tolerated and indulged, where we have professional regulators who, when confronted with evidence of their members spewing anti-Semitic rhetoric, the like of which would have been at home in 1930s Germany, decide that they've done nothing to bring the reputation of the profession into any disrepute, and that we have had successive governments that have refused to act when they've had powers to act. It's all of those things, together with the recognition of the Palestinian state, that has contributed to this. And as I said earlier, when you reward terrorism, you get more terrorism.
Exactly right. Albanese, as I say, making all the right noises since this atrocity, saying the Jewish community are hurting. Today, all Australians wrap our arms around them and say, we stand with you. We will do whatever is necessary to stamp out anti-Semitism. It is a scourge and we will eradicate it together. My question to Anthony Albanese would be this. Since you're now talking about wrapping your arms around the Jewish community and saying we stand with you, how do you think, Anthony, you made the Jewish community in Australia feel on September the 21st when, as you say, Stephen, for no real reason at all, you recognised Palestine, you rewarded Hamas, you rewarded those killing rapist thugs of Hamas by recognising Palestine? How do you think Mr. Albanese feels that he made the Jewish community in Australia feel that day?
Yeah, it's interesting. It really raises a question, not one that is usually asked, of what should be done, because we know what should be done. It's glaringly obvious and has been for a very long time. The real question is, why is it not being done? Why are governments not taking the actions they should be taking to stem this tide of extremism that threatens, the very existence of their societies? And this performative, hand-wringing nonsense, thoughts and prayers, it's nothing. It will simply infuriate the Jewish people. Because they've heard it so many times, and they can count on the fingers of one hand the number of times it's translated into actual concrete measures to deal with this problem. Now, the real question is why? And there we're in the arena of speculation, and we can't be certain. There are a number of possible reasons for it. None of them are flattering, but it's where we are. And somebody really needs to get a grip of this now before it's too late. We are running out of time.
And what did you feel about Albanese today announcing that the way to deal with what happened on Bondi Beach was to have a crackdown on gun control laws? Now, Australia has the strictest gun control laws in the Western world, so it hardly needs that. It's not about guns. In fact, the father of these two lunatics, the older one, the father, was a fully licensed weapon holder, so he was allowed to have these guns. So gun control wouldn't make any difference at all.
I mean, a couple of months ago, Jews were murdered in Manchester with knives. So,
well, exactly right. It's this refusal to confront what happened, really, what happened and what this was about. A lot of the reports, obviously the BBC leading the charge, but to be fair, a lot of media organisations very reluctant yesterday to say anything more than this. There was a terrible shooting, a gun attack on Bondi Beach. Some of the victims were Jewish. They knew what was going on. They knew what happened. This was two Muslim men shooting Jews celebrating Hanukkah, and yet this reluctance to characterise it for what it actually was. And Albanese, by saying, let's crack down on gun control, I think he's part of the same syndrome, a kind of abject refusal to confront the horrific reality of what happened yesterday. And it happens every single time. There's this impulse to dilute the fact this was an Islamic attack on Jewish people.
Yeah, there seems to be a real reluctance to do two things. One, say anything that might actually engender any sympathy for the Jewish people in the wake of October the 7th, but also to be very clear about where the problem is coming from. We do have a serious problem with Islamist extremism in the Western world. It's undeniable. It's there in front of our eyes. Yet too many people in power do not want to be very, very clear about that. Whether it's because they're frightened of being called racist or for any other reason, it's hard to say. As I say, we're in the area of speculation. But it is intolerable. And we are at breaking point. Something really has to be done to break this cycle of denial if we're going to move. And I stress what I said earlier. This is not just a threat to Jews. It's everybody who prizes our democratic our values.
Yeah, worth mentioning that essentially what we saw, 15 people died, 39 injured. Nearly all of them were, they were Jewish, but they were Australians. You see what I mean? Just as the people killed in Manchester were British. People who happened to be Jewish. How is the Jewish community in Britain feeling today after what happened in Australia yesterday? Because as you said, Stephen, I think there are uncomfortable, uncanny parallels between what has been happening and what has happened in Australia and what has been happening here in Britain.
I mean, it's almost becoming a cliche now, but I think it's this balance between shock and surprise. Deeply, profoundly shocked by what happened, but not remotely surprised that it happened, because we've all been expecting it, and we're probably all expecting it to happen again somewhere else, unless there are really serious concrete measures taken to deal with this problem of Islamist extremist violence supported by radical left progressives who have made it their life's work to demonise Jews and the Jewish state.
Yeah, so what Albanese should be talking about today is not the far right, who are completely irrelevant, and as I said earlier, incidentally, have never committed any terrorism in Australia ever. He needs not to be talking about that. He needs not to be talking about the irrelevant issue also of gun control. He needs to be talking about the real problem here, which is the explosion of anti-Semitism and its continued rise and rise. That's what he needs to be talking about, but he's not talking about that. And it's the same deal in this country, isn't it, Stephen? We need to hear more from our government about what they're going to do about anti-Semitism. How about, for a start, these pro-Palestinian marches that we see every weekend snaking through our cities, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people. I'm against banning them because I believe in the freedom to demonstrate, but if they break our laws, such as chanting, for the annihilation of Israel, the murder of Jews, from the river to the sea, etc., etc., they should be arrested. Jihad chanters should be arrested. They're not being. That would be a good start, wouldn't it?
Well, part of the problem is that we've all been seduced into calling them pro-Palestinian marches when they're anything but.
Yes, I know what
if they were pro-Palestinian marches, they would have been calling for the things that would have given relief to the Palestinian people very, very quickly, namely the surrender of Hamas and the release of the Israeli hostages. Were they calling for that? No. They were calling for the destruction of the only Jewish state in the world. They were calling for the Intifada to be globalized, which basically means let's kill the Jews everywhere. They were wielding swastikas intertwined with the Stars of David. They were chanting ancient Arabic chants, recalling a massacre of Jews in the Middle Ages as a threat that it's coming again. These are not pro-Palestine marches. They are anti-Semitic hate marches. And one of the reasons they've been allowed to go on for this long is because people have been duped into believing that they are some sort of humanitarian cause. The hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people who have died and are dying in Ethiopia, Sudan, Yemen, the Congo, not a peep from anybody.
Stephen, listen, thank you so much for talking to us. I'm very sorry for the loss of the Jewish people in Australia. It's a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. And I thank you for coming on. Always a pleasure to talk to Stephen Silverman there, Director of Investigations and Enforcement at the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. I've got in the studio Will Kingston, Australian commentator, and my producer Samara Gill, who's also from Down Under. She'll come into the studio after the break, and we're going to talk about what this means for Australia. What do Australians feel about the leadership they've been labouring under, if I can put it that way, for the past few months and years of the Labour administration. So we'll talk about Anthony Albanese, we'll talk about Australia, and we'll talk about what can be done. That next. Stick around.
the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I've got two Australians in the studio, political commentator Will Kingston. Welcome, Will. And Samara Gills, my producer. She's also from Australia, so I thought it would be interesting to get their take on what's happened. Well, first of all, Will, Australia, I mean, it's had some terrorist problems, but nothing like this. Australia's hurting today, isn't it?
It is hurting today, Kev. Thank you for having me on. Strength and love to everyone back in Sydney. I'm initially from Sydney, and there is a certain emotional impact when something like this happens in an area that you know so well, as our listeners and viewers in Manchester would know as well. Look, Stephen said something very interesting in that previous conversation. He used the term cycle of denial. And I think cycle of denial is apt for what we heard from Anthony Albanese and Chris Minns, who's the Premier of New South Wales today. Yeah. You said that the decision to recognise Palestine and the inability to crack down on hate marches could have emboldened these terrorists, very possibly the case. But I think the root cause goes deeper. And it's the root cause that none of us want to talk about after every single one of these events, and that is the failure of the multiculturalism project. It is to acknowledge that diversity is most certainly not our strength, and across both the UK and Australia and Europe, Islam is a cancer, and is a cancer that has unfortunately been brought to our shores by mass migration. And if this is ringing any bells for UK listeners and viewers, it's because it is the exact same problem across both countries.
Well, both of you know that both of our countries have exactly the same problem. It's almost uncanny how you can compare Australia's anti-Semitism problem with Britain's anti-Semitism problem. Samara, tell me about Anthony Albanese, because he's making the usual noises. Lessons will be learned. Hearts and prayers go out to the victims. Let's embrace our Jewish people. Let's stop the rise of anti-Semitism. Well, you haven't stopped it so far, Anthony, have you?
Totally. I mean, Anthony Albanese is a disaster in chief, and senators like Marina Faruqi are basically disaster tourists at this point, laying their wreaths at Bondi when they've worn keffirs in the parliament. They've stood next to anti-Semitic signs. They haven't condemned Hamas. These are people who are completely anti-Semitic, that are embedded within the Australian parliament, and for months have been lecturing Israel about what they're doing in Gaza. And now they have the temerity to show up at Bondi Beach and say, oh, blessings for the Jews, prayers for the Jewish community. We don't want your blessings. We don't want your prayers. You are actually implicated in this situation. They are culpable.
Wouldn't it be better, perhaps you could answer this one, wouldn't it be better if Anthony Albanese today had said, clearly, yesterday proves we have a problem with anti-Semitism. These people were shot for being Jewish. We need to tackle the problem of anti-Semitism. Instead, what does he say? We need to get tough on gun control laws. You've already got the strictest gun control laws in the Western world. He's deflecting from what he needs to do, and I think he's doing it deliberately.
Yeah, of course he's doing it deliberately, because that would require political courage and it would require the courage to go against a lot of his base. Again, very much like something Keir Starmer saying the same thing, it would go against a lot of his base. Gun laws are, as you've said, some of the tightest in the world. They are not the issue. I haven't heard it from any politicians yet, but I've got no doubt that they'll be talking about cracking down on social media and the internet next as the next straw man to bring up.
They like that, don't they?
That will come next.
Our lot like that as well.
Exactly right. Because the Labor Party in Australia, much like the Labor Party in the UK, are culpable for the mass migration project that has brought these sorts of people who despise these countries and despise Western civilization into our midst.
I would say, we have a Syrian-born hero who proves that migration can be we've got the best of the...
I don't think it's migration. We need to talk about the ideology that pulls the trigger on those guns, the ideology that plows planes into buildings, drives cars into Christmas markets. That's the issue. It's Islamist extremism. I agree with a lot of what Will says, but I push back on it a little bit. I mean, we are a country that literally our population came via boats in order to come to the shores.
Prisons.
Yeah, from our prisons. So I think we are actually a country built on... Well, it's a little bit different to... I know you disagree with that, Will, but it's a little bit different to the UK where there isn't actually, a inherent
Yours is a
class.
culture based
we are based on migration.
Let me be perfectly clear. I'm not saying that immigration is the problem per se. I'm saying that immigration, as opposed to being treated as a yes or no question, we need to say where from, how many, and how quickly. Now, in the post-war years in Australia, people came from Europe, they came from the United Kingdom, and it's much easier to integrate someone from Greece or Italy than it is from Syria. To your point, Samara, absolutely not impossible. Absolutely not impossible. But at the same time, we need to confront the reality that in the last 20 years, a higher proportion of the total immigration mix has come from Islamic countries, and that's led to an increase in violence. It's also led to an increase in issues around the treatment of women and minority groups.
Well, statistically, we'll have to have a look at that, but I'm sure that you've got a point there. I mean, Islamists or Islamist extremists are responsible for a kind of frightening majority of most terrorist attacks around the world. Why, Samara, today was Anthony Albanese wittering on about the far right? Apart from gun control, which is irrelevant because this guy was a licensed gun holder, that's one of the shooters. Why was he wittering on about the far right?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Kev, because it's quite baffling to see him go on television. I mean, he bangs on a lot about anti-Semitism. He hasn't really once mentioned extreme Islam or, the extremist that came here with an Islamic ideology. He's not talking about any of that. He's only talking about anti-Semitism, and then he sprinkles in the far right, which have absolutely nothing to do with this, and they're a very, very small section of Australia that don't really exist over there. I mean, they did, one march, Will?
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably clued up on this to me. They're not a thing over there. I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
I was going to ask you, how many terrorist atrocities have the far right in Australia been responsible for?
That's a great point.
I think the answer's zero. So why is he droning on about the far right?
Occasionally you'll get 50 nutters all clad in black.
Yeah, but they can have a demo, but they haven't actually bombed anywhere or anything like that.
No, that's exactly right. It is to try and basically make the problem seem equivalent.
It's because he's like Starmer.
Exactly
all roads lead to the far right. They always talk about the far right.
For everyone listening and watching who doesn't follow Australian politics closely, Starmer and Albanese are effectively one and the same in terms of what they believe. And also actually in terms of being, incompetent charisma vacuums. It's sort of surprising how comparable they are. It is to try and basically say, look, there isn't really a problem around a particular culture because we've got problems on both sides of the political and cultural spectrums. It's to try and make that equivalence when it's the most false of equivalences.
It is a false equivalence in terms of what we saw yesterday, certainly. I mean, two guys with rifles just firing indiscriminately. And by the way, can I ask you a question about the Australian police? First of all, we saw the hero who got a couple of bullets in him for his troubles, but the Australian police witnesses who were there were saying they sort of left it to the public to try and deal with this. And one guy, because these two shooters were on this kind of pedestrian bridge at one point, one guy went to try and tackle them, and the only thing the police seemed to have achieved yesterday was to shoot the hero. They shot him. The Australian police seem to have questions to answer here.
I'm hesitant to put any blame at the police at this stage. I think as the fog slowly lifts, we will see how they responded. There'll be the usual inquiries. We'll work out whether or not they could have done any more than they did.
What we would call coppers on the beat. So it was a Sunday evening, so they usually put their most inexperienced cops out there on the beach to just patrol, because it's usually very peaceful. And I do think, yes, there were quite a few inexperienced cops, but I wouldn't actually say that that's it's not their fault. Would you?
Yeah, look, I would add one more thing, and again, the horrific tragedy of a police officer inadvertently shooting one of the victims is a tragedy, but again, without any further knowledge,
you're right.
I'm not blaming the police officer for that calamity.
You're right.
At the same time, it raises a question for the United Kingdom in that all police officers in Australia are armed with guns, and it could very well be the case that if those police officers did not have guns on them, many more people would have died. Now, in the United Kingdom, the country's long had the fine tradition of policing by consent, which has made arming most officers unnecessary. That's now broken down because it is no longer a high-trust society. So I think there is a question for the United Kingdom, which is when this type of attack occurs in the United Kingdom, and it will happen again, do police officers need to have guns on them to make sure or to minimise the casualty rate?
I've always thought it's a bit ridiculous that we don't arm all of our coppers, to be honest, when this is 2025. You know, we see people who say, British policemen shouldn't, bobbies on the beach shouldn't have guns. Well, they're living in sort of 1955 or something. You know, this is not the case anymore. This is a much more dangerous country than it used to be. And we send our coppers out with no weapons to deal with it. It's ridiculous.
That's because of the woke ideology, though. I mean, you've got the same issue with the NHS, where every time they're like, well, if the cops have guns, then we're going to turn into a George Floyd-esque America, where, you know, people are shooting people left, right and centre, and then with healthcare, you know, if we have any sort of change to our healthcare system, we're going to turn into America. So I think you're right. We need to harden up. We've got mass stabbings going on. We've got crime rampant on the streets. Cops in the UK should be carrying guns, and I want to know the audience's thoughts on that, because I think it's quite a divisive topic over here.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Let me know what you think, folks. Is it time for us to arm all coppers in Britain? Because these are dangerous times, and if nothing else, our policemen, our coppers, should be able to defend themselves, right? And indeed defend the people of this country against the lunatics that seem to be prevailing more and more to an alarming extent. Will Kingston, Samara Gill, thank you very much. Very interesting. Let's go to break. We're going to take a sort of total break. We're going to go off-piste. We need to do something. I was going to say it's a sort of lighter shade of pale, but it's not really. We're going to talk about The Exorcist, the film. And The Curse of the Exorcist. They've been making, the first film was made in 1973, regarded to be an all-time classic. It's an amazing film, very terrifying but amazing. They've been making sort of sequels and new versions ever since. I think it's like 4 sequels, and they've got another one coming up starring Scarlett Johansson. I think that's provisionally called Exorcist the Martyrs. But bad things have been happening to people involved in this film ever since the start of the franchise. So the question is, I mean, I'm talking about people dying unexpectedly, horror events on the set. The set of the original film, check this out, burnt down in a mystery fire. And when the studio guys got there the next day, the whole set had burnt down, except for the devil's bedroom, where the kid was playing being possessed by the devil. Linda Blair was the actress. That room was perfectly intact. Cue spooky music. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about The Exorcist. It was a film first made in 1973, directed by William Friedkin, who got the film was nominated for an Oscar. It's a horror film, but an all-time classic. But since then, about 4 sequels have been made, and there's a new one in the pipeline starring the actress, extremely successful actress Scarlett Johansson. And people are saying, why has she done this? Because she's very suspicious, old Charlotte, apparently. She never walks under a ladder, crosses her fingers whenever she passes a graveyard. Recently, while she was staying at a centuries-old hotel in the UK, she abruptly left her room in the middle of the night and refused to go back, citing a series of strange occurrences. So you might think she's not set up for this kind of role, but she's going to do it anyway. This one's going to be called, they think, the working title is The Exorcist, The Martyrs. Now, the thing about the film is, ever since 1973, people surrounding it, people at the centre of it working on it, some of the cast, some of the people working on it, the backroom boys and girls, terrible things have happened to them. Now, one thing, as I was just mentioning, in 1972, when they were sort of converting a Manhattan warehouse into a handsome Georgetown terraced home where the possession was supposed to happen, it caught fire. And when they came in the next day, everything was a mess, apart from the actual room in which they were filming the possession of the character 12-year-old Regan McNeil, who's played by Linda Blair. Linda Blair has since suffered terrible back problems. Several of the people concerned of the cast of the original film died soon afterwards. And just generally, there is this long list of disturbing incidents that have led to the myth, if you like, or the legend of the curse of the Exorcist. Now, you know, I'm a man of the world. I'd be likely to reject all that sort of claptrap, that hocus pocus. However, you know, I do think there may be something in tapping into the forces of evil. What do you unleash there? And have the various directors and producers and stars in Hollywood been dicing with danger, dicing with supernatural danger, when they've been chronicling this story, this absolutely terrifying story of diabolical possession? Let's, of course, talk to priest and exorcist, Dean Jason Bray. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hi, good to see you. Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Now, my take on this, you know, I'm not much of a kind of believer or anything like that, but you know, and I know the way that these kind of myths or these legends can sort of arise and prosper. People gossip, Chinese whispers and all that. But I do think, you tell me what you think, you're the expert, but I do think there's probably something in suggesting that if you tap into the forces of evil, this film is about the darkest forces of evil. Perhaps you're unlocking something that you don't quite understand, that perhaps bad things do happen if you tell these kind of stories. What do you think?
Not at all convinced, actually. So the Exorcist franchise, you know, and certainly the original film was basically written by very devout Roman Catholic, and it's basically a sort of almost like an advert for the Roman Catholic Church. So in a sense, what you might say, I'm not a Roman Catholic myself, I'm an Anglican, but what you might say is that actually it's quite a positive story. So you know, I don't buy any of the the sort of evil stuff really, and to be honest, I'd see it as a coincidence.
Well, I would say you haven't seen The Exorcist, right? You haven't seen the original film.
No, I haven't seen The Exorcist. I haven't seen any of the films. Not great on horror films, to be honest.
Yeah, you should see the original. I mean,
people keep telling me this, and I was on Irish radio a while ago, and they played some music, and everyone started laughing, and I thought, what are you laughing about? Apparently, it was the music.
But the original film, I haven't seen any of the sequels. I'm like yourself. I get pretty freaked out by horror films, particularly this kind of film. If you watch this film, I think you would agree, the effect it has on you is almost visceral. There is something. It's a unique film. It's astonishing. It is powerful. Some film experts say it may be the greatest film ever made because the effect is so visceral, so extraordinary. So there is something unique about the original Exorcist film, and the scenes starring Linda Blair as the 12-year-old victim of this possession are deeply disturbing. I'm just saying, and you're quite right. If you take 5-6 films and you say, oh look, I've got 20 people who worked on those films to whom bad things happened, it's not entirely out of the realms of possibility. But no, I mean, but what do you feel about? I mean, is there a force of darkness that you can tap into?
Yeah, but for me, the force of darkness tend to be concentrated in human beings. So if you look over history, you've got the 20th century. You've got mass murderers. You've got Stalin. You've got Mao. You've got Pol Pot. All those people. They were inspired not by, demonic forces. They were just inspired by being nuts. Almost by a sort of ideology. And I reckon that the evil actually much more frightened of human beings than I am of, the paranormal or anything like that.
The director, William Friedkin, who also got an Oscar for The French Connection, a hell of a director, much underrated. This, I think, was his follow-up film. He was nominated for an Oscar for this, but didn't actually win the award. He talked about this fire that happened on the set. The headline was, "Exorcist set burns, mystery fire spares demon's room." And he at first said, Friedkin said, this is just the publicity I needed. But later on did admit that it kind of freaked him out, and the quote was, "rattled me more than I let on." Then there were several of the cast who died soon after post-production. And bad things have happened to a lot of people connected to this film. And I take your point, it's probably mostly coincidental. But tell me more about, I mean, you do exorcists. I mean, are people actually possessed by evil, or is it some kind of psychological sort of occurrence?
Yeah, to be honest, most of the people that we come across who claim that they're possessed are, got some sort of psychiatric problem. Very often they're hearing voices that are sort of saying, telling them to do things or telling them that they are in fact possessed. And hearing voices isn't usually regarded as a symptom of sort of being possessed. It's usually a symptom of schizophrenia or some sort of psychiatric disorder of some description. So we're really skeptical of anybody who comes and says, I'm possessed, as much as anything else, because if you're actually possessed, the last thing you're going to do is contact somebody like me to try to get rid of it. So if your entire body and entity and will has been taken over by the forces of evil, the last thing you're going to want to do is to come to me and say, actually, I'm possessed, to get this out of me. We come across lots of people who, think that they probably are possessed, but I've never actually come across anybody that I've even been suspicious that they might be possessed.
But do you believe in evil as a sort of ethereal entity?
I'm not sure.
I'm going to ask you if you believe in God in a minute.
No, I do believe in God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do I believe in? Do I believe in the devil? Do I believe in a sort of? Yeah. I'm not. I'm not sure. I would. I'm open to the possibility that there may be. So I'm also open to the possibility that people might actually sometimes be possessed. I've just never met one. I've met people that I know to be evil. So, I sat in a room with people and I thought, actually, there is something about you that makes my flesh crawl. And then I've discovered afterwards that there is actually a very good reason why this person might have been somebody who's, completely evil, given themselves over, if you like. But I'm not sure that there is a sort of demonic force there. That's something that, well, in
It
a
sort of
sense,
exists on its own. That possesses people. You feel that people themselves create whatever evil.
Yeah, I think people probably give themselves over just to that sort of, and it's a sort of path that you go down. This is a sort of small thing to do, and then a bigger thing to do, and then a bigger thing to do, and you end up being consumed by it effectively.
And don't you sort of de-spirit houses? You go around sort of.
I do, yeah.
Well, do you believe in ghosts then?
I suppose I probably do, yeah.
So do you get calls from people who say, I've got a haunted house that's really freaking us out? What do you do to get rid of the spirits in these homes?
Well, ultimately we pray. I'm a Christian priest. What I tend to do is I sort of listen really carefully to what's going on and try to work out what it is that's, because sometimes people spook themselves out. Scarlet maybe one of those actually. But yeah, we pray, we bless holy water, we splash holy water around, and we say prayers, we say the Lord's Prayer in particular, and that seems to work most of the time.
So so that's good. So that de-spirits a house. But is it automatic? You talk about saying prayers, holy water and all that, which tends to indicate that automatically all ghosts are somehow malevolent. Is that automatic, or are some ghosts really good guys and good women?
I've come across, ghosts seem to be sort of fairly neutral, I suppose. The living can harm you. I'm not sure the dead can. Okay. Some of the time I talk to people who've experienced somebody that they've loved in life, and somehow they're stuck and they keep seeing them, and other people keep seeing them. So there's a friend of mine who's his ex-boyfriend used to appear in the in the back bedroom and occasionally in the shower, and would freak people out, but not a malevolent spirit in any way. Just sort of somebody that had been loved and somehow got left over.
Extraordinary. Listen, Jason, fantastic to talk to you. Would you agree to a proposal by me? This is my proposal.
I might do.
Would you consider watching the original Exorcist film and then come back on and give me a review?
Yeah, I might.
Well, I'm going to pressurise you because honestly, I know exactly what you mean about these kind of films. That usually they irrationally scare me, and B, sort of kind of bore me. They're just all a bit silly. But the original Exorcist is, I can tell you, it is a film classic. It is a remarkable piece of filmmaking by a director of true genius, which William Friedkin was. Have a look at it, will you, and come back on, and can we talk about it? Because I would find your reaction fascinating. Deal?
Yeah, okay.
Deal?
Not sure.
All right, well, we'll pressurise you. In the new year, come on, watch it. Don't watch it on Christmas Day. It spoil the whole atmosphere, but later on we'll do that. Really good to talk to you, Jason. Thank you so much. Dean Jason Bray, their priest and exorcist, about the film The Exorcist, which is supposed to have a curse around it. What do you reckon? 0344, is that our number? 0344 499 1000. Forgot it there for a second. I'm always doing that. I say it about 25 times an hour, and I just forgot the number. 0344 499 1000. When we come back, we will indeed take a couple of your calls, and then after the 9 o'clock news, go straight over directly to Los Angeles to talk to our royal guru, Kinsey Schofield, we need to find out what the latest occurrences are on Planet Meghan. All that still to come. Stay tuned.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Coming up after the 9 o'clock news, it's Kinsey Schofield on the latest goings-on on Planet Meghan. Her reaction to her father's life or death drama has been somewhat cold-hearted. Seems to have used it as an excuse to basically let us all know that she'll never talk to her poor old dad again. That's nice, isn't it? A happy Christmas, everyone. Before we get to the 9 o'clock news and then Kinsey, let's talk to you people, you fantastic audience. Let's go to Bristol and talk to Charles. Hello, Charles. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kev. How are you?
I'm all right. You want to talk about the Australian horror?
I do, unfortunately. It just seems like it's never-ending, isn't it? It's no matter what happens, it's 1 minute it's in England, next minute it's in France, next minute it's in Australia, then it's in America.
Yeah, well, what you've got here is liberal-leaning, sort of left-leaning Western democracies led by left-leaning leaders who I don't think they're so keen on virtue signalling, halo polishing, being seen to be kind, that they won't confront the truth. What Australia should be confronting right now, and it isn't, is its massive anti-Semitism problem. Instead, you've got a Prime Minister there, Anthony Albanese, droning on about gun control and the far right. It wasn't the far right that shot all those Jewish people yesterday on Bondi Beach. It was 2 Muslim men with rifles. Confront the truth and we might get somewhere. Don't confront the truth and we'll never get anywhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, next minute you hear it's the far right, but you'll never hear it's the far left.
That's true.
You won't hear that.
Here's the deal, Charles. Australia, if anything, has an extremely minor right-wing extremism problem, and the so-called far right have never been responsible for a single terrorist attack or atrocity in Australia. So Anthony Albanese going, talk about the far left, far right, the far right. Why? Why? They're irrelevant. Your problem is anti-Semitism. Your problem, Anthony, is Muslim extremism. Simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, most definitely. I think us in the UK have a much more problem with the, shall we say, the far left in the United Kingdom than they do anywhere else in the world, with Sadiq Khan and how he wants to run the Metropolitan Police and everything else in the UK.
Yeah,
I think we've got a much more prominent problem here than what they've got in Australia, and I think they're on the wrong curve, and I think they need to really fight the ideas.
I think we've got a similar problem to Australia in both governments. They've got a Labour government, we've got a Labour government. Both governments need to get real and confront the reality of the anti-Semitism in both countries. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Charles, really good call. Thank you for ringing. Charles in Bristol. As I say, we're going to go to break now. It's the news coming up, and then Kinsey Schofield, live from Los Angeles, all about Meghan. Stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, let's go straight over to... We're going to take your calls. Oh, I say straight over before... let me say this first. Taking your calls after I've spoken to Kinsey Schofield. So that'll be as of about 25 past 9. And then the floor will be open to you for the rest of the show. Petri Hoskins takes over at 10 p.m. to take you through into the small hours, 1 a.m. But you got me for the next hour or so. So let's go over, shall we, straight away to the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, the great Kinsey Schofield herself. Hi, Kins.
Hi, Kev. It's such a sad day here in LA with the death of Rob Reiner. We're all in a funk.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because obviously we need to talk about Meghan, and I find it extraordinary that she has let it be known while her father is fighting for his life, having had his leg amputated in the Philippines. Meghan has taken this opportunity to let the world know that she now feels a reconciliation is impossible and she will never speak to him again, while the guy's fighting for his life. It's unbelievable that she should do that. I mean, well, doesn't she know anything? Even if that's the truth, don't announce it now, Meghan. We'll get on to that in a second, but I did want to ask you about Rob Reiner, guy who I interviewed a couple of times. Nice guy, very nice guy. Not keen on Donald Trump, but when I interviewed him, Donald Trump was just this wide boy in New York, so it was different times. I
mean, I wouldn't be keen on him too after I saw that tweet today. I have plenty of friends that voted for Trump that were horrified by Donald Trump's post. Donald Trump, really rein it in, buddy. It's the holidays and this is a horrible situation. Have some compassion.
Yeah, we'll get to Trump in just a second, but Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner found dead at their Brentwood home, Los Angeles, very nice area of LA called Brentwood. They had about a $40 million mansion there. They were found with their throats slit. And their son, Nick Reiner, a guy who's had a lot of trouble with drugs, has been arrested and is in custody, being interviewed by the LAPD. Obviously, no charges or anything like that.
No, he's been charged.
Has he now been charged? Has he been charged?
And they revoked his bail. It was $4 million, and the bail has been revoked at this point in time. Everybody was surprised that there would be bail anyway on, a potentially very violent double murder. But
so he's been charged with the murder of both of his parents, yes?
Yes.
Wow. So anyway, you were saying, tell us about how Los Angeles, how Hollywood is feeling today.
This is pretty devastating. I mean, on Saturday, Nick was seen in a very loud fight with his father at Conan O'Brien's holiday party. Larry David was there. Of course, I mean, everyone was there at Conan O'Brien's party on Saturday night. And people saw and overheard a fight between Rob and Nick. And we know that Rob and his wife were upset and left the party. Witnesses didn't say whether or not Nick left the party with them, but on Sunday, Rob had booked an appointment with a masseuse, and that person arrived, knocked, called, no one answered. So their daughter, who lives across the street and who is incredibly close to them, was alerted that they weren't answering the phone, went inside, and she stumbled upon the crime scene. I cannot stress enough how sweet and good and pure and innocent their daughter and son, Romy and Jake, are. Incredibly close to their parents. And it was their daughter who said, she's 28 years old, who said to the police, go find my brother, Nick, he's very dangerous. So a horrible holiday season for them. The family was preparing to have Hanukkah celebrations Sunday night. And it's just devastating.
It's really, really sad. As I say, I met Rob a couple of times to interview him. A lovely guy. Of course, responsible for that all-time comedy classic, When Harry Met Sally, and a lot of other very famous films. The son of the legendary comedian, comic writer Carl Reiner, of course, very much a major Hollywood player. So Hollywood is in shock. Donald Trump tweeted or posted on Truth Social, his social media site, that Reiner and his wife died. Rob Reiner and his wife died quotes, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession with President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace. That's a strange thing I mean, I'm a fan of Donald Trump, but that's a strange thing to post, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Rob Reiner was very anti-Trump, but talked to our friend Piers Morgan when Charlie Kirk was assassinated and was emotional about the loss of Charlie Kirk and said that he was devastated by it and really affected negatively by, he said he saw it online and it devastated him. And it was such a kind and appropriate reaction to something that no one expected, considering the fact that he was so anti-Trump, considering the fact that people consider him on the far right of the opposite side. And so I was disappointed by that post because, you know, rise above, be the better person. There was no need to say anything like that, especially when this is a really, I mean, I believe that this is an issue of mental illness. You know, be more sensitive and be kind about this. There are 2 children without their parents and without their brother now. And this was an incredibly close, similar to the Trump family, an incredibly close family. It was an incredibly close dynasty. They all worked together. They encouraged each other. Nick did have a lot of problems, in and out of rehab at least 15 times, but who was there to direct a movie he'd written about his life in 2016? His father. So I just wish that Trump would have been kinder about the scenario.
Also, Kinsey, I mean, it's incoherent. You can't, you know, as you say, we've got to stress Nick Reiner is charged with these offences, but he's innocent until proven guilty. But if the scenario is what we think it is, then how does that link into Trump derangement syndrome? It just doesn't. You know, Trump is kind of implying that somehow or other Rob Reiner, with his allegedly obsessive Trump derangement syndrome, brought this horror on himself and his wife. That's just a nonsense. I reckon Donald is probably thinking better of that now that he's posted it. But I mean, that isn't the issue. What, as you quite rightly say, a much-loved director, very nice man, and his lovely wife have been murdered in the most horrific way. A brother and a sister have lost their parents, and they've lost their other brother as well, in effect. So that's the real story here. Hollywood in mourning about the shocking and sudden loss of one of their greats. He's an all-time great, Rob Reiner. Astonishingly successful director. So R.I.P. Mr. and Mrs. Reiner. Let's go to break now, shall we, Kinsey? And when we come back, we'll return to Meghan and the way she's behaving as her father wages what is still a life or death struggle in a Philippines hospital. That next, stay tuned.
the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Kinsey Schofield, our royal expert. We've just been talking about poor Rob Reiner and his wife slaughtered in their home in Brentford, LA. Now let's get on, Kinsey, to Meghan. And what's happened in the last couple of days? We know what's been going on for more than a week now. Her father, Thomas Markle Sr., collapses with a blood clot on his brain. He has life or death surgery on the critical list, intensive care in a Philippines hospital, and thank God pulls through, but has to have one of his legs amputated. So it's very, very serious. We were looking for Meghan, after 7 years of not talking to her dad, to pick up the phone and ring him or go and see him. What she did eventually was to send him a letter, and that's it. And since then, I think this is quite shocking, she has let it be known through her normal sources that after what's happened in the last week and a half with her father, she now feels that a reconciliation will never be possible, and she will not speak to him again in his life. Now, for her to use this opportunity to make that kind of announcement, I think is almost inhuman. Your dad is nearly dying. He's had his leg off, and you're letting it be known, well, that's it, I can't reconcile with him now, and I'll never talk to him again. What do you make of that, Kinsey?
Well, I think we should go through the timeline of the very bizarre process.
Go for it.
She uses to get a hold of her father, in which, you know, she's caught in a million lies here. So after the story came out from the Daily Mail, and this is your friend Caroline Graham that has also befriended Thomas Sr. After that story comes out, she says she receives a flurry of harassing messages from one of Meghan's employees, somebody from her PR team. She said, I found the tone unnecessarily aggressive and was so concerned. I told him I would prefer that he dealt with my editor and the paper's legal team. And she's also like, I have other things to worry about, like my friend Thomas Sr., who's hanging in the balance. And now she says that he's kept the same phone number for the last 20 years to ensure that if Meghan ever needed to reach him, she could. And he says, like, Doria and Meghan have called me multiple times. So Caroline, knowing that, just to make sure that things run smoothly, she goes ahead and she gives Meghan's team Tom's phone number again, and the hospital name and the hospital room. And she says no one called. At the time of the publication, Meghan still hasn't called. And so then, bizarrely, on Monday afternoon, an assistant to the president of the hospital comes into the room with a one-page legal document, and it says consent and waiver for U.S. Embassy representative visit. So Thomas Sr., I mean, again, hooked up to all sorts of machines on medication, is asked to sign this waiver saying that if somebody calls the embassy, they can give information about him up, which I feel bad for him that he's in the position, because it's not one paper he has to sign. Meghan sends multiple people, a parade of individuals with legal documents through his hotel or through his hospital room. And he just wants a phone call. So he signs this piece of paper saying that the embassy can give somebody information about him, and then somebody shows up and asks for a specific names. He says Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, his friend Caroline, and Thomas Jr. If anyone calls the embassy, they can be given information about him. Moments later, he asks, I'm sorry, can you tell me who called and asked for me, at the embassy? And the person says, I don't know, which has to be a lie. I'm asking you to sit there ill and probably in pain and sign all this paperwork, and I can't be honest with you about who is calling and asking about me at the embassy. So that's on Monday. On Wednesday, the president of the hospital walks into the room with her lawyer, no warning, and they're recording him. And Caroline says, I covered Tom's amputated leg with a sheet to preserve his dignity. And he's asked to sign yet another legal document to confirm that he's about to receive a letter from Meghan. And the letter was sealed and personally handed to him, and that they made sure that the video, or that the entire exchange was recorded on video for vile Meghan Markle. And so Tom asks that the Daily Mail not tell anyone that they received a letter. He says, Caroline says, absolutely not, I won't. But when she gets back to her hotel room, and this is what we're talking about. We're talking about Meghan saying, I refuse to talk to my father because he talks to the media. She gets back to her hotel room. Caroline turns her phone on, and it's blowing up with messages from journalists and friends saying that the Sussexes released the fact that Meghan's letter was safely in the hands of her father. So this poor man has had this parade full of people come through, and then it's my opinion, sends someone on her behalf to the Times to give them this exclusive that Meghan Markle has no plans to see her father. And to that I would ask you, and has no hope of reconciling. And to that I would ask you, then why waste so many resources? You're calling the embassy, you're calling the president of the hospital, your dad's exhausted signing all of these legal documents so you can hand over a note. And she claims she doesn't want to call him because she's afraid of somebody listening in. Kevin, you and I've watched how many hours of With Love, Meghan? We assure you, you're not that interesting. Literally, no one cares. She's told somebody at the Times that she deleted her father's number. Well, and then it says in the Times that Meghan's letter set out her feelings regarding her father's decision to give several interviews to the media about their relationship. Yeah. How do they know that? And it also says Meghan is thought to believe his collusion with the media has been a major factor in the breakdown of their relationship and a key reason to why they are unlikely to ever reconcile. She has not received a reply to her letter, nor has had any contact from her father since its delivery. How does the Times know that? Because Meghan is in contact with the media, the exact thing she's accusing her father of doing.
Absolutely. And do you know what's bad about this? The letter, we can now take it as read that Thomas Markle got her letter. Now, this letter, I think you're right, Meghan has let it be known that in this letter, she's thought to have said that his relationship with the media, this is all said to be in the letter, means that they are unlikely ever to reconcile. So in this letter, if we're to believe this story, but you're right, this is multiple journalistic outlets have been given this story. In this letter, she's obviously written to him, oh, you're talking to the Mail on Sunday, you're giving these interviews, and therefore I can't reconcile with you. Okay.
A breakup instead of Daddy, are you okay?
Exactly right. Now, I think what's going on here is Caroline Graham, very good journalist, as I say, old friend of mine. She has, over the years, from doing lots of stories on Thomas Markle, become a personal friend. She actually flew to the Philippines. Okay, for the story, but also to see her friend. She's been at the bedside like a friend. I think Meghan is looking at this and going, there's one of to her, all journalists are pantomime villains. So she's looking at this pantomime villain, the reporter from the Mail on Sunday, and she's in a rage because Caroline is her father's friend. Caroline is reacting like a friend, trying to help a friend in distress, as in Thomas Markle. In other words, Caroline's doing what any decent daughter ought to be doing. I don't care about any of this stuff. Your relationship with the media. What Meghan should have done, in my view, is get on an aeroplane and go and see her dad, because it might have been the last time. But at the very least, pick up the damn phone and ring him. Why can't she talk to him?
Because she has no desire to. I mean, the fact that the letter is all about her and why she's mad at him and isn't asking, or just saying, I just want to make sure you're okay. I'm so sorry you're in this situation. It tells us that she is totally self-consumed, which we know she's completely self-consumed. But you listen to all of the psychologists and all of the experts in the build-up to the big, I guess the climax is Meghan using the embassy to get a letter to her father. But if you look at all of the experts that talked about the build-up to this, they said, yes, perhaps there could be a reconciliation, because sometimes death, illness, shock will force those relationships back into place, because it scares you straight. All of a sudden you're going, okay, well, what really matters is my father's health. Okay, what really matters is that I want to ensure that my children get to know their grandfather, and now that's in jeopardy. He's been so ill. I'm appalled that what was inside that letter, according to the Times and according to people that are clearly in contact with Meghan, because they have answers to questions that no one should unless they're in contact with Meghan. I'm appalled that the letter was a confrontation, more of a fight, more of her trying to justify her feelings, instead of being like, for the time being, I want to set this aside and just make sure you're okay. But Meghan had to nip this story in the bud, because at the exact same time that this was happening, she was trying to sell us a familyless Christmas special. And she realizes that this incident makes her look heartless and makes her look like a hypocrite based on what she's trying to sell us on a Christmas special that would never even hit Netflix's top 10.
Yeah, it didn't hit the top 10, and it's full of the importance of family at this time of year. As we know, she hasn't spoken to her father or her half-brother, Thomas Markle Jr., or her sister, Samantha Markle, for more than 7 years, since before she got married to Harry. But what I find extraordinary is that, there's no official quotes from her people or anything like that, but we know what she's done. She's let it be known to papers like the Times. The Times has run this story, so it's more than tittle-tattle. The Times would have to be satisfied that this was true. So I think the Times has been told this is what Meghan wants the world to know. Meghan wants the world to know that she's taken the opportunity of her father's life or death battle, his critical condition, the amputation of his leg, to let us all know that she'll never speak to him again, that a reconciliation is now impossible because of her relationship with the media, because of Thomas Markle's relationship with the media, I should say. And I think, given Thomas Markle's condition, his parlous condition, his perilous condition, to do that at this time, oh yeah, well, my dad's nearly dead, but I want to let you know I'm never going to speak to him again, because of his relationship with the media. To do that when he's languishing in a Philippines hospital bed, fighting for his life, I think is astonishing, don't you?
Yeah, girl, you are married to Thomas Markle because your husband wrote a book and appeared in a reality show where he unleashed on his family. Like, she's literally married to what she considers the problem. Prince Harry is guilty of all those same things. And I think it's so important because there are other headlines, I believe it was The Independent that you sent me today, that suggests that Harry and Meghan will never fully reconcile with either one of their families.
Either of their
I
parents,
agree.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. But you're seeing a much more aggressive effort, even though I think it's for show, from Prince Harry. Why? Because the Sussexes need the British royal family. They need that association with the British royal family to continue to monetize and make money, whereas Meghan doesn't need her daddy anymore. She doesn't see any value in him, and that I don't believe that that's true. I think he's a sweet man who's done. I mean, just go read some of her old TIG posts where she's gushing about what a great man he is and all the sacrifices he made for her. But we see Harry is the only one that jumps on a plane when he finds out his dad is ill. Why?
That's true.
Because their proximity to the British royal family is something that they can monetize. And that is it. That is the only, I think that both of them are disgusting when it comes to the way that they treat their elders. And I include Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip in that as well.
Yeah, and it's just, call me cynical, but it seems to me, I said this to you before, Kinsey, but I think Meghan, ever since her dad was rushed into hospital with a blood clot, emergency surgery to save his life, then his leg amputated, he's been touch and go. The doctors said to Thomas Markle Jr., prepare for the worst, he may not pull through. He did, thank God. But throughout all this, knowing all of that, that her dad was at death's door, Meghan's only reaction was to treat it like a PR problem, a publicity problem. She's been handling it like it's difficult, stormy waters to navigate in her eternal quest of a sort of perfect image. And no real emotional response at all. And the reason that she hasn't flown out to see Meghan Markle is, unlike King Charles, there's nothing in it for her. She's not going to get any money out of going to see her dad. And therefore, it just looks to me as if she's just got no more use for him or the rest of the family she's sent to Siberia forever.
She must be one of the loneliest people in the world, because the Victoria Jacksons and the Jamie Kern-Limas, they're going to get tired of being used. They're going to get tired of the fake and the fraud and the grifting, and they're going to get tired of the one-sided relationship. Harry is probably, he loves me so much. Do you love him?
More than anyone in the world.
Do you love him? Like, I just think that her existence must be incredibly lonely and miserable. And I think she probably has to pay a lot of people to stick around. And even those people are out the door sometimes in the pattern of a revolving door when we're talking about her employees.
Yeah, I think she's a narcissist who's deeply in love with herself, so deeply in love with herself, there's not really any room for love for anyone else, including Harry. I think she just loves herself, and everybody else, they don't mean anything to her. It's just the pursuit of her own wealth, fame and glory. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. It really is. Kinsey, fantastic to talk to you as always. Thank you so much. I'm going to see you tomorrow, I do believe. Kinsey Schofield, the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered there. Let's go to break and we will take more of your calls. I think we've got some WhatsApp voice notes. I'll play those out and I'll read some of your messages for the next half an hour or so until I hand over the helm of the Good Ship Talk to the great Petri Hoskin. Will take you through to 1 a.m. So all that's still to come. Stay exactly where you are.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm going to go to the phones in just a second. A little bit of breaking news for you. Gideon Falter, he's the chief executive of the campaign against anti-Semitism here in Britain, has revealed or has claimed that his organisation, Jewish Community here in Britain, were organising tonight a vigil in Westminster, Parliament Square, just outside the Houses of Commons, to mark the horror in Bondi Beach, to pay tribute to those 16 victims of that horror shooting down there in Australia. Gideon Falter says that Mayor Sadiq Khan, or his London authorities, Mayor Sadiq Khan's London authorities tried to stop this vigil commemorating victims of the Bondi Beach attacks, citing safety and crowd control concerns. So, according to Gideon Falter, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism's chief executives, Sadiq Khan's geeks, goons, the London authorities who work for the mayor, tried to stop this vigil for the commemorating the victims of the Bondi Beach atrocity, citing safety and crowd control concerns. We haven't got Sadiq Khan's office's response yet, but we'll try to get that. But that's what Gideon Falter is claiming. If that's true, that is shocking, isn't it? Let them commemorate the fallen, for God's sake. Let's listen to WhatsApp voice note, shall we? This is Katie on Bondi Beach.
Hi, Kevin. My cousin lives in Bondi. He's okay, thank goodness. I'm still in shock. I send all my love to everyone who's like, you know, when we don't have words, I actually don't have words. What do I say? Like, oh, thoughts and prayers. We're fed up of thoughts and prayers. This needs to stop. Like, why can't people just live in peace and harmony and just, why are people trying to do this to people? Like, but enough is enough.
Poor Katie. Obviously the emotion in her voice there, but you know, she's making the point. I'm sick to death. I'm sure you are too. I'm sick to death of these politicians talking about our thoughts and prayers with the families of the victims. Lessons have been learned. Same old cliches every single time. They don't mean a damn thing. Do something about what caused this in Bondi. What caused it? Anti-Semitism, not guns. It wasn't gun control. That won't sort the situation out. Anti-Semitism. Stop talking about victims on Bondi Beach, including some Jews. It was an attack on Jews by two Muslim maniacs with rifles. That's what happened. If we don't confront what it was, we're in deep, deep trouble, folks. Let's talk quickly, shall we, to Janice in Essex. Hello, Janice.
Hi, Kevin. It's the pest.
How you doing? Yeah, how you doing, Janice? So what would you like to say?
I'm just so... I'm so upset and gutted. Look, we are still fighting over religion. But there's one thing. All the Christians that are being slaughtered in the Arab nations and the Africans, we don't say a word about them, do we?
I guess not, yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
Europe, we're a Christian nation. We never say about all the Christians that are being killed.
That's
when
true.
When are we going out and helping them?
Well, I think what we're talking about at the moment, though, is Jewish people being killed for being Jewish.
I get that.
You know,
I understand it. I understand that. Yeah. And my heart goes out to them. And I'm saying, you know, this fighting has got to stop.
Well,
it's got to.
Well, it won't stop. It won't stop. It won't stop.
No one wins.
Janice, it won't stop until we confront the reality of what it is, and we have.
Well, we know what it is, but we know what it is.
Does Keir Starmer say what it is? Does Anthony Albanese say what it is?
Well, governments.
Has
governments wake up and just deal with the problem, then we might get somewhere.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Janice. But frankly, that'll be the day we should be so lucky.
I'll be dead by then.
Well, that's no excuse. Listen, Janice, I've got to move on, but a nice call from you as always. Good to talk to you. Janice in Essex. Shall we talk to John in West Lothian? Yes, let's. Hello, John.
Hi, good evening, Kevin. This horrendous problem, in Australia. The Australian Prime Minister's taken an awful lot of stake about recognising Palestine, but actually our Prime Minister did exactly the same.
On exactly the same day.
Yeah, and we
September the 21st. They did it in unison.
Yeah, and we've got an attack in Manchester.
Yes,
and the French president did it, and the Canadian Prime Minister did it. So where does this end? It is just a nonsense that these people don't recognise where the trouble is coming from. If you give these words out there, then people are going to jump on it, because they don't care. They don't worry about genuine, sensible people.
Well, it seems to me, John, that there is a correlation between the recognising of Palestine in Britain and Australia and the attack on the Manchester synagogue and now the attack on Bondi Beach. This was when we recognised Palestine here in Britain and in Australia and indeed, as you say, France and Canada. It was rewarding terrorism. It was rewarding what happened on October the 7th 2 years ago. And it's interesting and chilling and sinister that since Britain and Australia recognised Palestine, 21st of September, 12 days later, the Manchester synagogue attack unfolded in all its murderous horror. And now we've got the Bondi Beach attack. There's a correlation, I think, between governments signalling their virtue and recognising Palestine and the emboldening of terrorists.
You're absolutely right, Kevin. I mean, that's the way that the world is going at the moment. We actually have to stand up, because it's like, even if you were at school and you've got a bully, if nobody stands up to them, they will take license from it, and so will other friends of theirs. It will go on and on and on. You've actually got to stand up to these people and say, enough is enough, and we are going to take action.
Yeah, absolutely, John, and I wish we would. I mean, it's all about saying that we have a massive problem with anti-Semitism. So, for example, maybe in both countries, but certainly here in Britain, and I would suggest Australia as well, here's a good place to start. Instead of the police standing around while these pro-Palestine marchers shout and scream about jihad from the river to the sea, free Palestine, instead of all of that, which are just guarded anti-Semitic chants, Jew hatred, the police step in and arrest these people because they're breaking the law. You're not allowed to chant about killing Jews, and that's what a lot of these chants are. So, and these slogans, the banners they hold, move in, arrest them. Apart from that, I don't think I'm against banning these pro-Palestine marches because I think you've got a right to protest if you want, but you can't break the law. And our coppers and Australian coppers are letting these marchers, letting these demonstrators break the law. And that's what we should stop.
Yeah, but don't just blame the police, Kevin. It's coming from the top. This is.
Well, I do blame the police. The law is being broken.
Yes, but they've been encouraged by.
Yeah. They're all the same. Most of them are the same. Most of these young coppers are pro-Palestine, anti-Israel fanatics, just like their bosses.
Yeah,
so I'm not having that. I do blame the coppers on the beat. They should be arresting these people.
Yeah.
Their sympathies are quite obvious, to be honest with you.
Well, Kevin, can I just say one last thing? I'm now petrified because my granddaughter is going out to Australia next year for a brief vacation and so on with her friends, and now I am now concerned for her safety.
Well, I hope they get their act together, John, but at the moment their Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, is talking about gun control, talking about the far right. In other words, he's doing anything to not talk about the real problem, which is the rise, the explosion of anti-Semitism in Australia, which we have here too, and both countries have got to confront it and sort it out, otherwise God knows what's coming down the track. John, good talking to you. John in West Lothian there. Let's speak to Jane in Marbella in Spain. Hello, Jane.
Hi, Kevin. This is true story, anti-Semitism that goes back many years. I was working in my office sort of 20 minutes late, and a colleague came up to me and she said, "Oh, typical, you're Jewish. That's why you're working late." And my immediate answer to her was, "Do you realize you are working for a Jewish company? Do you think you should be working here?"
So, hang on, was you working late? Was that supposed to be a bad thing? What's wrong with working late?
I was...
Jewish people work hard. She sees that as an insult.
Correct.
So Jewish people work hard. She sees that as an insult.
That was an insult. Cut a long story short.
By the way,
I was promoted to the youngest career woman in England and travelled the world.
Good for you. Good for you. By the way, let's not. We shouldn't get into this. Some Jewish people work very hard. Some Jewish people are lazy, just like the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a trope to start saying these Jews, they work hard. They're always out, making money and running businesses. It's just a trope. An anti-Semitic trope. They're the same as the rest of us.
They're very happy to work for us.
Yeah, Jewish people. Some of them are hardworking. Some of them run businesses. Some of them are lazy.
Absolutely.
Some of them don't run businesses. They're the same as the rest of us. Let's get that right. Jane, good call. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. Jane in Marbella in Spain. Let's go to break now. We'll talk to Herbie and Harrow when we come back.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Big breaking news, folks. The BBC can forget about its forlorn dream that Donald Trump will just let it ride, that Panorama, their flagship news documentary show, doctored a videotape of him making that speech on January the 6th, 2021, to make it look as if he was calling for insurrection and revolution and storming of the Capitol Hill building, which of course he wasn't. BBC said, oh, it's not defamation. Oh, you know, we've apologised. That's the end of it. Well, this is the breaking news. USA Today, major newspaper in America, is now reporting that Donald Trump is definitely going to sue the BBC in a matter of hours. So that lawsuit will be dropping on the BBC's doorstep pretty damn soon. And you remember that the President, Donald Trump, threatened to sue our state broadcaster for $1 billion, and then he upped the ante to $5 billion. So this juvenile, naive, forlorn hope that the BBC always had that Donald Trump would somehow or other go, oh, well, forget it. I always told you. Donald Trump's not like that. And sure as hell, it turns out he's not. Within hours, the BBC is reported to be expected to receive a massive lawsuit from President Donald Trump for the Panorama show doctoring tape of him making that speech on January the 6th, 2021. I can say that as a fact because they've admitted they did that. They've apologised for it. Now it looks like they're going to pay a massive, massive price. A little bit of a tip for you at the Beeb next time you encounter such a problem, which, knowing your incompetence, you almost certainly will. Don't admit liable before a potential libel case. It's never a good idea. It means you're doomed to lose. So I hope you got $1 billion or $5 billion ready to give the President of the United States of America, because that massive lawsuit is about to land on your doorstep. Enjoy. There you go. Let's go back. Well, let's have a listen to a WhatsApp voice note. This is the last one. It's Tristan on Bondi.
Considering how amazing Australia is, they've got an absolute idiot in charge who could do some amazing things and so strengthen unity for Australia and clamp down on the Islamic threat. But no, it's all about woke virtue signalling and appeasing the Islamists. Considering the idiot in charge prescribed Palestine as a state, it basically says it all, to be honest. So it's not hard to do the right things for a country, but it takes the will and the love of the country. But this is just another woke leader in government who does absolutely nothing. And it's all over the West. And it's only going to get worse, isn't it?
Yeah, as you say, Tristan, he's wittering on today about gun control, far-right extremists. No, it was Muslim men with rifles shooting Jewish people. Never mind gun control, never mind far-right. This is Muslims shooting Jewish people. That's what happened on Bondi Beach, and Anthony Albanese seems rather afraid to call it like it is. So there you have it. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Herbie in Harrow. Hello, Herbie.
Good evening, Kevin. Well, Bondi Beach, I think, is only the start of what's about to happen around the world. We've got to realise that allowing these how can I say, these people are coming over illegally, unmarked. We do not know who they are, what their position is in life, everything else. We know nothing about them, and yet we're leaving it wide open for them to abuse us in the way they're doing it.
You're exactly right, Herbie. I mean, this comes down to, once again, the fact that we in Britain have had a kind of open border policy of letting in hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of migrants, foreign people about whom we know nothing. And we're beginning. I did a story earlier in the show. I don't know if you were tuned in, but Reform UK have put in a freedom of information request to all 43 police forces in England and Wales. Only 11 replied, but 11 forces reported that over the past 5 years, more than 208,000 serious crimes have been committed by foreign nationals, bearing in mind that 32 police forces did not respond. Including the Met Police. So you could be talking about nearly 1 million offences by foreign nationals in 5 years. That's because we're just letting anybody in.
Kevin, this is going to be the biggest crisis we've ever confronted. Another thing, may I say, or suggest to you, is that You know, we allow these people to come over here. They have their mosque. They can teach and preach their religion, but the Christians and the Jews can't. They seem to be hammered all the time because of these people thinking that they have the right to disrupt our way of life, but not theirs. It just don't seem possible that we can allow this to carry on. You know, with all the migrants coming over here, as I say, don't know who they are, what they're up to, what they're thinking. How much more can we take of this? We're going to be blown apart or shot apart by these people? We do not know. See, it's time somebody took control and brought back civilization to this country and our way of life to this country, Kevin. It's got to stop.
Exactly right, Herbie. There were quite a few lefty commentators and politicians came out yesterday to say, let's remember the traumatic effect this must be having on the Muslim community. OK, all right, decent Muslims probably are quite traumatised by it, but I think primarily I'd rather worry about the Jewish community right now, who had 16 of their own slaughtered in the most horrific circumstances on Bondi Beach. It's just so typical. Herbie, good to talk to you, as always. Herbie in Harrow there. I got a few messages about that story we did about The Exorcist, the Curse of the Exorcist film. Kate says, rather unfairly, I think, the priest that I had on was very uninformed. I don't think that's true. But he said, Kate says, I have witnessed several exorcisms, talked to a few Catholic exorcists, e.g. Monsignor Rossetti from the United States. He will soon tell you the reality of opening up demonic activity. You know, I don't really believe in all that sort of thing, but I do, you know, there are a lot of cases where tapping into the forces of darkness does seem to cause trouble. So I'm not entirely a skeptic when it comes. Well, I am skeptical, but I'm open to be persuaded about what happens when you dice with the devil, which is what the Exorcist films have done. Now, with a view to that, let's talk to Russell, new caller from Bedfordshire, who wants to talk about The Exorcist. Hi, Russell.
Hi, Kev. How you doing?
I'm
First
good.
time caller. Great to speak to you. Yeah. Fascinating that you were talking about The Exorcist earlier.
Yeah.
And I know to some people's eyes it might seem really trivial to be talking about like a 50-year-old movie when all these terrible things are going on in the world, and you obviously.
Well, I did it by way of a break. It wasn't much of much of a light and trite break, but different subject, you know.
Not at all. No, I mean, I think it's got real bearing, because you just mentioned just now about dabbling with, you know,
dicing with the devil, tapping into the forces of darkness.
I mean, I'm not religious, but I'm not an atheist either. I like you just said, I try to keep an open mind. I was probably agnostic is probably the better definition, because I keep an open mind to the possibility of things. Well, now you mentioned about that with The Exorcist. Now there is another movie which I really would suggest you check out, made by John Carpenter, the director of
which film is that?
It was called Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this.
Yeah, he's a terrific director, John Carpenter.
Terrific director. Now, there's a great cameo role in that where the priest this time is played by John Pleasance. You know, the great actor.
Yeah. Or do you mean Donald Pleasance? Donald Pleasance.
Donald Pleasance.
Yeah,
sorry, Donald Pleasance. He has a wonderful cameo role in this movie, and he has a wonderful monologue. And basically, what happens is these bunch of sort of like physics students unwittingly sort of like open up a portal to hell. Now that might sound very cheesy, but the monologue that Donald Pleasance delivers basically says that the problem is that the church basically sold everyone on the idea of there being this supernatural being who embodied all good, but they denied the possibility of an opposite. They said, rather like the reverend that you had on, who was your guest
the dean, Jason.
They said, it's in the hearts of man. Well, if you're going to try and sell people on the idea that there's a supernatural being who embodies all good,
it's a good point.
Surely, shouldn't there be the opposite?
Yeah, that's right. Because he Jason, who I thought was an interesting guest, but he wouldn't sort of accept the concept of the ethereal business of evil, but he believed in God, but not necessarily the devil. I see what you're saying. It was interesting.
The problem I think here, Kev, is that if you take these things too lightly. Now, I'm not suggesting anyone sort of like you know, believe in something categorically without proof. I think you should have a scientific method to all these things. But there are people out there who do seem to have a very strong belief in, you know, in the occult or in black magic, evil, whatever you think. You might call it. There is, I don't know if you've ever heard, but there is an organisation called the Lucius Trust. You should Google this and just read up on it. The Lucius Trust has some very sinister connections, and it was formerly known as the Lucifer Trust.
Oh, right. So these are devil worshippers, or
Now, there are people out there taking this stuff very, very seriously. Now, one thing that will possibly blow your mind is that the Lucius Trust was one of the bodies instrumental in setting up the United Nations. Now, I'm not getting into
well, that I don't find difficult to believe, considering what the United Nations has turned into. What I should say quickly, Russell, is that something like 9 people have